Welcome to the deep dive. If you've ever sent an email that was, taken as passive-aggressive, or if you've had a conversation where you just swore you used the perfect words, but somehow they landed completely wrong,
Hmm.
then this deep dive is for you. We are jumping into a really radical structural reframing of how we understand language, text, and meaning, drawn directly from the architecture of reflective humanism.
And our mission today is really to give you a tool set for viewing that everyday frustration, that miscommunication, that awkward silence, not as some kind of personal failure, but as a predictable structural thing.
Right.
We want to shift the frame from what did I do wrong to something more like, okay, what is structurally happening here?
And to do that, we have to challenge one of the most, deeply ingrained assumptions we have about communication. Intuitively, we all operate as if words carry meaning.
Yeah.
We think of language like a shipping container. I load up my idea, package it into words, and ship it over to you, where you just unpack the exact same meaning.
And that intuition, as convenient as it is what the sources just completely upend. The core counter-thesis is this. Words do not carry meaning.
Okay.
Instead, meaning is defined as a fluid, energetic gradient that arises from interference. The word itself is just the input needed to shake that gradient into existence.
A gradient arising from interference, that creates a kind of cognitive whiplash for me immediately. If I just told you the sky is blue, the meaning, the blueness felt really specific. It felt transported.
Right.
So where did that specificity come from if it wasn't actually in the sound waves?
You came from the complex dynamic interference that happened when my wave of sound hit your internal structure, your memory, your context, your relationship to me, all of it.
My whole history of looking at blue skies.
Your entire history. The specificity isn't solid. It's just the momentary alignment of our two systems.
So that structural separation then between the word and the meaning, it must become visible in our daily lives, right? In those moments where the system has a noticeable fault.
Right.
Let's look at where that divergence shows up in what we call communication failure.
Precisely. And these moments of friction, they aren't failures. They are the moments where the gap between the layer of the word and the layer of the meaning becomes, well, undeniable. Let's maybe look at three classic examples where the layers diverge.
Okay, give us the first one.
The first is, it's just simple text exposure.
Mm-hmm.
Think about the exact same written sentence like, the meeting is canceled,
Mm-hmm.
and how that simple script can create completely different feelings in different people. If you've been dreading that meeting, you feel relief.
Yeah, total relief.
But if you're counting on it for a big presentation, you feel anxiety.
Hmm.
The physical text didn't change at all, but the meaning gradient, it just flipped polarity.
So that proves the meaning isn't locked in the text.
It's dependent on the recipient's immediate fluctuating internal state.
That makes perfect sense. The words were neutral, but my internal context, my stress level, provided the charge.
And the second divergence point is the phenomenon of meaning arising when the text itself is completely silent.
You mean like reading a book?
The act of reading. When a word is written, it loses its voice,
Right.
its sound wave. It becomes this fixed, silent record. And yet, when you look at a book, meaning just springs to life in your mind.
So you're basically arguing that the silence of the page isn't an absence of meaning, but a container that holds the possibility of past sound waves.
That's the structural view. The silence holds the possibility of reinterference. Every time you read a fixed script, you're conducting a kind of experiment. You're throwing that stored waveform into the dynamic environment of your current mind to regenerate a new, unique meaning gradient.
So the meaning I get from a novel on a quiet morning is structurally different from the one I get reading it while, say, waiting for bad news.
Completely different.
Yeah.
And the third point of divergence is, well, it's maybe the most visceral one. It's the physical sensation of miscommunication.
Oh, that gut punch.
Yes, that gut punch. We've all felt it.
Yeah.
That sudden internal heat, the knot in your stomach when you realize the person across from you completely misinterpreted what you meant. That immediate bodily reaction isn't just an emotional side effect. It's your body observing the structural shift, the acute moment where your projected meaning violently collided with the one generated in their structure. It's the physical pain of a computational error.
Wow, that is a powerful way to put it. The physical discomfort is my system recognizing that the gradients have failed to align. It's a system warning.
Exactly.
Okay, that observation leads us right to the architecture of the system itself. If words don't carry meaning, what role do they actually play in this three-layer system?
Right. Let's define the three core layers using the source's terminology.
Yeah.
But maybe we could think of them more as energetic states, not ingredients.
Okay, energetic states. I like that. So layer one, words.
This is the primary ways.
Hmm.
Think of it as informational fluctuation. Pure energy, no meaning attached. If you toss a pebble into a pond, the ripple is the primary wave. And crucially, the ripple doesn't transport the pebble's meaning across the water. It's just the energetic input that shakes the pond. Words, when spoken, are the acoustic input that shakes the possibility of meaning into existence in the listener.
So when I'm talking, I'm just sending ripples, basically, and hoping they interact productively with your internal pond.
That's it. Then we have layer two, text or script. The source calls this the record, the silent storage device.
So this is when the wave is captured and fixed, the ripple frozen into ink.
The frozen pebble ripple. It's lost its dynamic energy, but it holds the blueprint for a future energy release.
The possibility.
That silence is the deep repository of possibility. And finally, layer three, meaning.
The secondary generation.
Meaning is the result of the interaction.
Yeah.
It is generated only when the primary wave, or the record of it, interferes with the recipient's internal environment. Meaning is the gradient that arises from that interference. It's not an ingredient, it's a generated phenomenon.
So, if meaning is generated by my internal structure interacting with your input, that means meaning itself can't physically be written down or transferred.
That is the definitive conclusion of this model. You can write the record, layer two, but the meaning, layer three, is only generated in the act of reading or listening.
Okay, but hold on. I have to challenge that a bit. If meaning can't be written down, what does that imply about, I don't know, contracts, laws, scientific reports? We base civilization on the idea that we can fix meaning in writing. Is that just semantics? If we both read "do not trespass" and we both avoid crossing the fence, haven't we successfully shared meaning?
That's a vital structural question.
Yeah.
And the model doesn't say alignment is impossible. It just says alignment is temporary and probabilistic. What you're calling shared meaning is what the sources define as transmission or understanding.
Okay.
It's a state where the gradients have converged or are temporarily aligned. It's a state of probabilistic consistency.
Probabilistic consistency. So we agree, but we can't prove we agree perfectly. We just agree enough to act in the same way.
Exactly. A written law, the record, functions because we share a huge cultural and legal context. We throw that fixed record into our shared, conditioned internal structures, and the gradients generated are close enough that we all stay outside the fence.
But the moment a lawyer starts arguing the intent of the law,
They are exposing the fact that the meaning gradient, while consistent for a while, was never actually fixed in the text.
fascinating. So misunderstanding isn't an error. It's just when the generated gradient is shifted, it exists, but it's not aligned with what the sender was projecting.
Correct. And silence is the unresolved gradient, the undefined region, the true reserve of potential generation.
That really changes the goal of conversation then. It's not about transporting solid information anymore. It's about dynamically managing and tuning an energetic alignment.
Yes.
Let's connect this model back to those common friction points, the moments that make us want to throw our phones across the room.
Let's start with texting, especially sensitive or complex texts, like online or email. Why does a neutral message so often come across as cold or harsh?
Because the most important piece, the primary wave, the tone, the inflection, the voice, is just gone.
It's completely missing. A text message is just the record, layer two, delivered in isolation. Since that essential layer one fluctuation is absent, the recipient's internal structure has to build the meaning gradient without enough external regulation.
So if I'm already tired or stressed,
If you're tired, stressed, insecure, your internal system has a low threshold for negative interference. It builds a steeper, often negative gradient just to fill that informational gap. The message feels cold, not because the sender was cold, but because the input was inadequate to regulate your anxious internal context.
oh, I had this exact thing happen last week. I sent it a simple text, "Can you review that document by 3?" And my colleague got really defensive, thought I was demanding overtime.
Perfect illustration.
I only sent the record, and she filled the wave void with pressure.
That's it. Now contrast that with voice communication, even a simple phone call. Why does just speaking reduce misunderstanding, even with the exact same words?
The acoustic wave.
It reintroduces that essential layer one fluctuation, tone, pace, inflection. They act as regulatory input. They don't carry the meaning, but they help the receiver's internal structure align the gradient much more smoothly. They provide more data for the interference.
It's like voice communication provides guardrails to keep the gradient on the road, while text forces the recipient to drive blind.
A great way to put it. And finally, what about that feeling when you deliver an idea that felt perfectly solid in your head, but the moment it hits the air, the meaning seems to just wobble or shift?
Yeah, that dizzying shift when I realize I didn't quite say what I meant to say.
That reflects the reality that meaning is a dynamic, fluid gradient. It's continually being generated, even inside you, the speaker. The moment you see the listener's reaction, a frown, a nod, that observation immediately interferes with your own internal structure.
And it causes my own meaning to shift
It's
mid-sentence.
a real-time negotiation,
Yeah.
not a one-way street.
It's really a dance then. The projection of my gradient creates a counterwave that modifies the very gradient I started with, and this lets us completely reinterpret conflict.
Absolutely. Misunderstanding that sharp divergence is not a failure. It's defined in reflective humanism as an essential transitional phase.
A transitional phase.
It's the necessary structural tension that forces the relationship or the context to readjust and realign the gradient, potentially creating a new, deeper level of that probabilistic consistency.
That takes so much pressure off. The goal isn't perfect, fixed meaning. It's functional, structural alignment, knowing that alignment is always fleeting.
To synthesize this, the whole structural model compels us to shift our entire focus from seeking fixed meaning in the word to observing the dynamic, continuous process of generation within the system.
So if you step back for a final framing, how does this all summarize the nature of human interaction based on the flow of this dynamic gradient?
It frames all interaction using those three dynamic states. First, understanding is just temporary alignment. It's a moment of probabilistic consistency, a fleeting structural harmony. We click, but that click is only guaranteed for that one moment.
And misunderstanding, that difficult, awkward phase, that's the essential transitional phase that forces change. It's the engine of evolution in how we communicate.
And finally, silence is the true reserve of generation. The undefined region, the unresolved gradient. The sources really honor this space, arguing that too much language, too much fixation can actually stop new alignment from emerging. The quiet space is where the next gradient will form.
It's all about process, dynamic flow, and constant adjustment over finding some stable final product. The whole structure is designed to be self-correcting.
And this quiet approach, it respects the fundamental nature of what's happening. So here's the final thought to leave you with. If meaning isn't fixed and solid, but continuously flows and arises through this dynamic interference, is what we call understanding, just a temporary fragile truce between two complex internal worlds.
And if thought is truly evaluated by resonance, not proof, what structures should we leave behind to be updated by the next interaction?
The framework suggests we should be focused entirely on tuning our own internal instruments, not trying to fix some unfixable meaning out there in the world.